Welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series, novels, and films. For this episode, the villains have run amok, and our heroes, well, they're kinda schmucks. But maybe with a little luck, we won't all be stuck, and our heroes can show some pluck. That's right, we're talking Season 1 of Young Justice. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Stephen Ford, joined as always by Andrew Knuckles.
Hello there.
And Joel Killingsworth.
Hello.
So guys, we obviously have Young Justice on deck for the show.
We do.
And it is, in fact, a show of which we watched one season.
Well, I have watched more than one
I have
season.
as well. Yes.
It's not fair to review, like I'll say, like a season 6 of something.
Sure.
It's
Because
weird.
It's no longer the show that it initially came out as. And,
right.
and like it. And then also, most people probably haven't seen all 6 seasons of a show.
Well, it's certainly less accessible.
Yeah.
Well, it would also be really rude for us to be like, season 6 is so great and so wonderful, and then just leave out the fact, well, you have to slog through the first 3 seasons if you want to earn this.
Yeah. That is One Piece to a T. You have to get through about...
season 25 is wonderful.
you have to get through about, I'd say, 38 episodes for it to get some true investment.
38 20-minute episodes?
Yeah.
Brutal. Absolutely brutal.
But the show actually really doesn't get like fantastic until like episode 309.
Oh my God.
And there's still like good investment up to that point, but like you're not fully invested until you get to episode 300. On
a specific level, right? I have always recognized that One Piece is an absolute gargantuan of a creature that has just been existing forever.
Mm-hmm.
But
Since 1999.
whenever you spell out, well, yeah, episode 300 is where it starts to get good. And it's like, wait, there's like 680 episodes.
No.
750?
They just had their 1000th episode like a couple weeks ago. They're on like episode 1020 now.
How does a single project survive 300 not good episodes in order to get to the good stuff?
But it's not that they're not good. It's just that you're not fully invested until episode 300.
Yeah, which sounds funny because like they're still like obviously you've watched, I'll say 150 episodes of the show. You're relatively invested in what they're selling. However, there is like there are turning points in the series obviously that happen, and when you hit these really big moments, then you're just like, oh well, I'm just all in now.
All right,
kind of experience.
Now that we've had a fantastic discussion about the level of commitment that is required to truly enjoy One Piece, it's on to our mini topic before we start to dive into Young Justice. And we haven't done one in a little while, so we felt like it was time to have a look at what everyone is watching and or reading.
Yeah.
And Joel looked like he was sort of hesitant and unprepared. So I'm going to throw this to him.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So I have finally been trying to get back to my backlog reading list of non-compulsory material. And so I have been reading Red Seas Under Red Skies, which is by Scott Lynch. It is the second installment of the Gentleman Bastards series, which is...
You can't say that word on air.
It's a title.
It's a title you can.
I know. Messing with y'all.
And it's essentially a fantasy setting, but it's about a group of thieves who specifically have been trained to prey on high society. So think Ocean's 11 in fantasy Venice.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You sold me. I'm liking it.
So, and one of the unique things about this from a fantasy genre perspective is that there is magic in the world, but the main characters don't have anything to do with it. The magic is mysterious, and when they run into someone who is capable of using the magic, it's a really big problem.
Okay. And that kind of relates back to stuff that you have brought up on prior casts, where when you have a soft magic system, it needs to not be the solution, it needs to be the obstacle.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna have to, I put my pen up.
How many books are in this series?
How many books have you read?
I would have to look
series?
that up. This is the second one.
Okay. You can look that up while I talk about what I'm watching.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
Outside of the plethora of weekly anime like Attack on Titan season 4 final season, so like
4.5.
yeah, it's like it's season 4 part 2.
4.5.
Yeah. And the show's kind of changed from what it initially started out as, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right.
Because like every story has to evolve, right? And initially Attack on Titan is kind of this horror genre of like these insurmountable kind of like brainless beasts are just like
mountains.
Yeah, that are just like eating people, and our characters can't overcome it.
Right. Or it's very difficult to overcome.
Yeah, and then you get to season 4 and it's completely different. Where there's like political intrigue and kind of relatively soft magic systems in existence.
Okay.
And
I mean, there was always hints, because I've only watched through season 2. There are always hints of political intrigue.
Yeah.
It was never really the main plot. It was kind of the side thing that gets mentioned, by two characters who are talking off to the side.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not a unexpected evolution.
Yeah. And this season's honestly been really good. The change from WIT Studios, which was the original production studio, to MAPPA has probably actually been a good upgrade, I think.
Oh, wow. That doesn't usually happen, I feel.
It's
usually
pretty rare,
reverse.
Yeah. It's just a different style is the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Then, because Holly and I just get really bored, and we just like to watch like really old TV shows. We're rewatching Lost right now.
Oh gosh.
And
we're rewatching old TV shows. So like Lost.
Well, I mean, we rewatch I Love Lucy every once in a while.
Yeah, but 90s isn't old.
Lost was 2003 to 2006, sir.
You're just further reinforcing my point.
I mean, that was almost 20 years ago.
Shut up. I want to hear that.
But yeah, we're midway through season 3 right now, which are arguably season 2 and season 3, I think, are considered some of the better seasons before the writer's strike.
Well,
so writer's strike, oddly enough, only happened in season 3 right to the beginning of season 4.
Oh, okay.
And then I think that they changed so much from season 4 that they just kind of had to commit to the other last 2 seasons of like the format. And but I don't remember a lot of those last 3 seasons because I didn't really pay attention a lot. So I'm looking forward to seeing how bad the train wreck actually was.
I mean,
or if it was a better train wreck than I remember it being. So I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out. Well, on that note, Joel, have you discovered?
I have discovered. So the Gentleman Bastards series is currently 3 books long with a 4th one in the works. The first book is The Lies of Locke Lamora, followed by Red Seas Under Red Skies, which I'm currently reading, followed by The Republic of Thieves, which was published in 2013. And the upcoming work is titled The Thorn of Emberlane.
Okay, cool. That is pretty palatable.
Palatable.
I always do that.
Pull-outable. You can pull that right out.
I get out of that word. But it's far easier to digest the fact that you have to read 3 books of the forthcoming than you're like, well, I'm actually on book 12 of The Wheel of Time. Well, and this is when it got good.
Yeah.
I just imagine Stevie sitting with a teacup with his little pinky out and he's like, yes, that was very palatable.
Pinky out. Come on now. Anyways, so jumping off of that exact pose, currently watching Our Flag Means Death.
Oh, yeah.
About the gentleman pirate who has one of the
Stede Bonnet.
Yes, one of the amenities that he has provided his crew is a full library
in a boat,
which is a not unreasonable thing for that era, actually.
No.
But
it's not relatively practical
the
just because
sort
of the weight.
Crew that he has brought, it is in fact impractical because they're pirates and not very good pirates at that. So it is.
Are you saying that pirates can't read?
I'm saying that in that era, most people who would have been making minimum wage or not making a wage would have been illiterate. Yes.
Are you making socioeconomic assumptions?
No. it's
almost verifiable fact.
I don't know if it's an assumption when it's history. That's the problem.
But anyways, go on. Tell us what
reading
is
wasn't
Our Flag
necessary
Means
to
Death?
figure out how the sales work. someone showed you how. Anyways, yes. So it is about the gentleman pirate, Steve Bonnet. Bonnet. I had it right.
Technically, he was a real pirate.
Who had some association with Blackbeard.
Correct.
And it is predominantly a comedy it's got some heart, it's got some wholesome. If you've seen What We Do in the Shadows, it's pretty on brand. It's I'm going to butcher this name. Taika Waititi?
Taika Waititi, yeah.
I didn't butcher it. Go me. Anyways, it's one of his projects, and it has very much so his style, reaching outside of weird shows that many people may not have seen. He did Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah. So which is probably his most mainstream.
Most mainstream association. So if you like that, you might like this. I don't know, because this is pirates, not space Hulk, demigod Norses.
Yeah. But so I've watched the first 3 episodes.
Yep.
HBO Max is kind of coming out with them in waves every week, kind of. And the first 3 episodes were fantastic. Holly and I were laughing the whole time.
Yeah, it's
a different kind of comedy, though.
It's definitely funny. It for me, it can be a little hard because it's got a lot of kind of awkward comedy.
It's kind of cringe.
Yeah, and I do struggle with that some, but it has enough heart behind it that it's okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they've added quite a bit of, like, even just in the first 3 episodes, like a decent little backstory for Steve Bonnet, and actually give you like some of his reasonings for doing things.
Yeah, and there's actually a fair amount going on beyond just comedy pirate show, and I have a quibble with you actually, because when you were telling me about it, you were like, well, they're on a wooden ship and it doesn't move, like the set is stable. The set might be stable, but they definitely do shift the camera some to imitate as if they're at sea.
Okay, yeah.
It doesn't, because I actually expected it to just be like, this is the most stable camera in the history of the world. And it just isn't. It actually kind of, you can feel motion in it. Mm-hmm. So I feel like you undersold me a little there.
Well, I think it's really more just whenever they do the wide shots of just the outside of the boat, it's clearly just on a soundstage.
Oh, no, it's just wood that they have assembled and there's nothing behind that.
Yeah. But not in a bad way. Like, it's kind of like whenever in the Truman Show at the end of the film, whenever he realizes that he is part of the show.
Stage, yeah.
And then his boat hits like the wall of clouds. That's kind of what it feels like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And it fits with kind of the style of the storytelling.
Like the tongue in cheek kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very much so a comedic, but it's a self-aware comedic. So they don't reference it in that sense, but they also have like the moment like, well, if you're here, who's steering the boat? And like, well, nobody it's sitting on a freaking stage, and no one actually would have to steer it. But there is a good moment, stuff like that they can throw out.
Yeah.
So
it's really fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting through it and seeing what else, where else they go with some of the bits and pieces they've already kind of laid out.
Yeah,
and I think you had said that reviewers who had seen more than the first 3,
they said there's a lot more like depth to it than just
the
like
initial,
straight comedy
than what you get from the initial episode. So yeah, I'm very interested to see where that will go. So, anyways. All right. Well, good talk about what y'all have been watching, and myself, or in Joel's case, reading. And it's not watching because he's listening. Busted.
Yes.
just agree, nod and say yes.
Stephen likes to hold over the fact that Joel and I like to listen to books, and Stephen likes to read books because they quotation marks are faster.
Well, it is faster.
It is,
but
it is.
I will point out that the oral tradition far predates written books. So
are you talking to me about how history and people were illiterate, sir? I think we've already had this discussion.
But there are certain things out of audiobooks that you don't get from reading. Like
mostly the use of your hands.
Well, I'm actually talking about content.
You can hold a book with one hand,
and also the use of your eyes.
Well, when we were listening
for like driving,
yes. Well, when we were
music is for
listening to Red Rising, and Stephen was reading it, he didn't realize that it was like kind of like an Irish.
Oh no! I definitely got the feeling of, because of the red hair and all these things. I was like, and then also the lament, the dirge.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is very Celtic. This is very Irish, Scottish. This region, and then you confirmed it by saying, well, that's how they spoke.
Yeah.
Cool, because you don't really get it just from the written word.
Yeah, well, they never specifically.
They don't have a brogue. There's no dialect. They don't hammer down specific slang, whatever that.
The closest you get is bloody, but
yeah,
like as a slang term.
That's a UKism kind of thing. That's decent.
Yeah. Okay.
Irish
Anyways,
people are mad.
moving
but
to
anyways.
Young Justice.
Yeah, back to the actual plot. Andrew is like, I have diverted us. I need to put Steven back on course.
No, I've diverted this like 3 times already.
Yeah, we're wandering.
I'm just trying to like just get little, marks up on the board here.
Oh, it's just
40 years in the
it's
desert.
just extra timestamps. We're gonna be like, all right, and this is where the dissertation on One Piece starts.
Okay, so back to the plot. Young Justice season 1. We watched it.
Mhm.
We have some opinions about it.
We do.
Joel, would you like to give us a little synopsis?
So a little synopsis.
Spoiler free.
Spoiler free. This is set in the DC universe. So
Good talk.
Batman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, that whole
Superman.
shtick. Yeah. But Superman is not the most interesting on that.
He is not.
Superman
but
has
he's
never
also
been the most
just
interesting
exists
hero.
within it, and you cannot ignore the fact that he is
I said
existing. over there.
Justice League. He's included. Sit down.
Has he
So-
ever not been in the Justice League?
Probably.
I'm sure that there's a comic
He was
book where he
like
probably
leaves
somewhere.
it.
Somewhere.
Well, he died at one point, so like,
He's not technically in it while he's dead.
yeah,
He didn't stay that way. Don't worry.
you're not better.
I do not care.
Anyway,
Anyways,
this show is not about them per se, though many do make an appearance. This
a
show
lot of them.
this show is about the quote unquote sidekicks. So this is Robin, Kid Flash, Aqualad, if you want to throw out some interesting names there. And so this team of 6 to 8-ish
It
teens,
kind of grows and shrinks a
grows.
little.
Yeah, there's not a rotating cast. It is a serial story. And so some people show up and leave over the course of the story.
Right.
But this group of young heroes are just really enthusiastic and anxious to be treated as equals with their adult counterparts.
Mhm.
And they kind of prove through a short series of misadventures that they're no longer willing to be patient and to kind of sit out certain aspects of the job.
Mhm.
And so in order to keep an eye on them, make sure that what they're doing has supervision, so that it's kind of like, when your teenager just makes it very clear that they're not going to listen to you. And you're like, okay, I hear you. You're going to do what you're going to do, but we're going to do it this way because this is the safe way.
It's basically whenever you're like, you tell your mom, I want to go to the skating rink with my friends. And she's like, okay, you can go. I'm just going to go hang out at the bar and I'm going to watch you while you skate.
No, your mom's not going to go hang out at the bar to watch you, Andrew. You were lied to.
Anyway, we're gonna take a moment for this to sink in, but we'll be back. No, so
To be fair, my mom is lovely and she actually would watch me
she's
from the bar.
actually going to be listening to this podcast and hear me say that.
Yes, I love you, Mom. Don't listen to Steven. He's an idiot.
anyway, so these kids go on a journey over the course of multiple adventures of determining not only who they are and who they want to be as individuals, with it being a coming of age story for many of the characters, but also it's a story about what it takes to be a team. And they go through multiple stages of figuring out, well, this isn't working because we don't have leadership. And then, well, we have leadership, but what is leadership?
Mhm.
And then, all that kind of thing as they grow together over the course of a 24 episode season, I should say. And by the end of it,
Was it 24 or
26?
26. And so you have a lot of space in there to develop a lot of different characters. So there's a lot of side arcs going off all over the place. And by the end of it, the main conflict that's set up pretty much right out of the gate is resolved in a satisfactory manner. And it's really quite an excellent example of what on the surface is a kid's show, but has a lot of complex themes and redeeming qualities
now.
that make...
We're moving away from Joel's synopsis to Joel's opinion.
Okay.
All right. There
we go.
You are
Fine.
No.
I was like, wow, he's really putting some words in my
I know.
mouth here.
No. You are 100% allowed to voice that opinion. But before you do, we finish the synopsis with hijinks ensue.
And hijinks ensue.
Yes.
There you go. Fine.
And let's throw some scores out there, and then we can render some opinions.
Okay. So for the overall score, which is combined between the three of us on our 4 pillars of review, or visual media, which are spectacle, performance, score, and plot.
Mhm.
That combined average came out to a 7.2 out of 10.
Yeah, and that's
That's respectable.
for just for reference and for kind of the going over it prior to before we get into the spoiler wall. Might as well break it out a little bit. Spectacle is kind of the wow factor. So in this case, it's going to be the animation is going to be really important here.
Yeah.
The things that make you go ooh and ah,
Mm-hmm.
how you feel, those sorts of things, how well they do it. Performance is going to be the actors. So in this case, it's voice actors. So there is some push and pull between the acting and also what we're getting on screen.
Mhm.
Score is the music. That one is simple. Does it work with what's being told? Does it fight it, etc.? And then the plot.
Yeah, and because it is a TV show for score, that also includes the opening and ending themes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Which do count towards the score. And it's not just the interior for each
Yeah,
individual
I actually would
episode.
argue that for a TV show, the intro and the outro are really important.
They're
pieces of
very
music.
important.
Mhm.
Yeah. I figured you and I were both on the same page with that,
Yeah.
and I didn't have to say it in the chat prior to or point out to anyone that it was going to be a factor. But obviously, the plot is just, well, how good a story did they tell? How well does it hold up?
Yeah.
So just for reference. So all that to say, we gave it a 7.2,
Correct.
which is a pretty respectable score.
Yeah, for especially for the first season of second or third tier DC characters in a kid show,
Mhm.
which is like it is advertised as a kid show. It was on Cartoon
I
Network.
mean, it was funded and existed to fuel toy sales.
Yeah,
Like it is a kid's show, just period, and told a much more cohesive and instructive story than I think you would expect from most kids shows.
Mhm.
well, a lot of kid shows have the problem of being episodic,
Right.
to where
Yeah.
anything that happens in the episode could take place at any point in time in the timeline of the course of the show.
Right. Ultimately, character growth and change over, the course of events occurring is something that when it actually happens in the writing for a kid's show, like you want to pay attention to that because that's going to rise above.
They're
your
doing
average.
a really
Mhm.
good job. Yeah,
Yeah.
because most kids shows are, well, and especially for us growing up, in the 80s, the 90s, etc., where every show ended with the lesson, the moral, and then
Yeah, you
the
have
next
Sailor Moon
show no
talking
one
to
learned
you.
anything,
Yeah.
and we're just, well, we have to have conflict, so we're just gonna have the same mistakes over and over again.
Mhm.
And this one definitely did a good job of moving away from that. And instead of doing the same mistake over and over again, they found new and interesting mistakes to explore.
Yes.
Yeah, but like in he says mistakes, but like it's very much kind of like, everyone gets part of a group project and you
Yes.
figure out, well, this person's going to be the leader because they're the most vocal or they're the most aggressive
Yeah.
or forward, I guess is the best way to describe it, where everyone has their own roles and they have to figure out those roles to be a successful team.
Mhm.
Right.
Especially whenever lives are on the line, or not even including theirs, but others, their friends, or just random bystanders that just happen to get mixed up in whatever's happening.
Yeah.
Well, especially coming away from something like Red Rising,
Mhm.
and you see this with stuff, Hunger Games, Lord of the Flies, right? The children are allowed to make their own decisions, which this team is, at the end of the day, allowed to make most of its own decisions. They chose who their leader would be. They
They're
choose how they
relatively
approach
independent.
missions, and they have help. Like the mentors are there, and sometimes they're with them, sometimes they're not. But for the most part, they don't really help. I mean,
They give them the missions.
and that's about
and,
it.
And then
Yeah. So it's interesting to see that structure. Where is there conflict within the team? Is there interpersonal problems that be worked through? Yes, but unlike a Lord of the Flies or a Red Rising, etc., you don't have these moments where they really like just descend into barbarity. Again, it's a kids show; you couldn't necessarily do that, but it is interesting to see them actually constructively work through
Mhm.
differences.
Mhm. And throughout the show, they actually do cover a pretty decent amount of, I'll say, more closer to adult themes like drug use
Mhm.
and just kind of how romantic relationships and professional relationships need to.
Yeah, there's that. There's also just the general issue of trust, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Trust turns out to be the ultimate theme that leads to their victory in the end over the bad guys in their final plot. And every step of the way, had they made a different choice, had they chosen barbarism over constructive, they in any one of those moments of growth not taking place in the order that it did results in a completely different outcome, because they were building trust that entire time.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the other big things or big themes that I actually really enjoyed about the show was acceptance, where acceptance of maybe I'll say your plight, for lack of a better term, or acceptance of your teammates and what they're going through or who they are. And I think that, especially for kids, I think that's really important.
Well, and even acceptance of yourself and who you are, because for several characters that is an issue.
Oh yeah.
And I did, I'm screwed. I'm just gonna keep heaping praise. I did like the way that they presented these kinds of, I don't want to call it conflicts, but points of pressure of, well, who am I? Who should I be? Who will I be? Who can I be? And how the individual characters, for the most part, some of the crew got better stuff to work with than others, but it happens. But how they kind of work through this both on their own and also with the help of team members.
Yeah.
So moving on, that combined score is not the only score that we give out. We also give out a entertainment value score, which is basically, the previous score is about how was it technically good, technically bad, that kind of thing.
Right.
This entertainment value is more like, what is your enjoyment, or our enjoyment, I should say, of the experience of watching this show, which in some cases can be very different from the technical score. But in this case, it is not. It's very, very similar. Whereas we gave it a 7.2 on the technical rating, we gave it a 7.3 for enjoyment, which I don't understand. Someone didn't like this at all.
Well, it's funny to me because we specifically came up with this separate category because we're going to hit some bad stuff that's entertaining, and what do we do in that moment? And ever since then, it's just been these two scores move almost in lockstep, and it's almost like, do we enjoy something just because it's technically good?
Not always.
Not always.
There are definitely going to be films and TV shows and books that we are going to review that are terrible on a technical aspect, but are still very fun.
Right. And now, before we jump off the high dive into any kind of spoilers, I do want to point out that if you're going through that with us, none of us know each other's individual scores. We have comprised a new thing, and we'll get deeper into that after the intermission.
So we are about to teleport to the Watchtower to talk spoilers. If you feel you aren't up to the task, then it's time to stay at the Halls of Justice. While you are here, if you like what you heard, spoilersintendedpodcast.com, a great hub for all of our episodes, Discord, and Patreon. If you do feel like joining the league, then get trot, stay whelmed, because we're feeling the aster.
Alrighty, everyone, welcome back from the intermission. Hope you enjoyed a little break because it is all spoilers all the time, the whole way through here. And we're going to kick it off with a little spoiler of our own. Andrew can't read his own handwriting.
No, I can't.
More news at 11.
So it has to deal with the entertainment score. Our little sheet that we are using had the wrong score in it. It actually brought the entertainment value of the show down by 4 points.
No, not 4 points.
4 tenths. 4 tenths of a point.
Yeah.
Because Andrew couldn't read his own handwriting and then changed the number to be correct, and now it's lower.
Now he's
because I opened my notebook and I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that is lower than I put, isn't it?
The system can tell you if a score isn't there. I can't help you if you can't read your own handwriting.
No, I know. It's totally my fault. So,
anyways, into spoilers.
Yeah.
And we're going to start off with our first piece of our review, and we're talking about the spectacle. Who wants to go first? Andrew looks really eager over here.
I have my notebook here. It's probably better to start low and then probably end higher.
Okay.
We're gonna go up one mountain and down the next.
Other. Yeah. All right. You know what? Well, let's just kick it off. Andrew, go.
Yeah. Okay. So none of us know any of the other scores at this point. So I gave Spectacle a 6.
Mhm.
Okay.
Which the show itself was actually fine. Like for 2000 for like
Ringing praise. The show itself was fine.
2010 was when season 1 aired
Mhm.
on and there's always a lot of caveats that come with broadcast TV, especially animation, where there are specific corners that they have to cut to be able to basically meet deadlines.
Mhm.
Especially
And
if you were
budgets.
and budgets, especially if you were trying to do hand-drawn animation, which is what they were doing, which is pretty fantastic
Mhm.
because a lot of newer shows, especially around that time, were moving over to all CGI,
Yeah.
basically, or CGI assisted line drawing
Mhm.
is kind of where basically everything is now. I'm almost positive. So giving it a 6 is really more. Probably my biggest issue was a lot of the action sequences never really like it just felt like I was watching a low budget kid show
Mhm.
where there
Mhm.
wasn't a lot of I think I could count 2 cuts of animation throughout the entire season that had more than 8 frames. One when they were doing kind of like they were defending a truck heist, and Miss Martian grows like 4 arms
Yeah.
out of her body, and then like she like kind of grabs like one of these little monkey robot things,
Mhm.
and
Stupid
like
monkey
that specific
robots.
cut of animation was fantastic,
Mhm.
but then everything else about the rest of the thing of the heist was just not very or visually interesting.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And just I don't know. I mean, like, it's just there just wasn't a lot of impact to the battles, at least for me. And part of that may just be, um, I don't know. Then there was also a couple off-model shots where I think the episode where they're going into this cloaked CGI, badly rendered CGI tower of
The
mystic.
Tower of Fate.
Tower of
Mhm.
Fate, and there's like I swear a solid 5-second shot of like right when they open the door of the entire team that is there, and they're all just looking into nothing, and they are not moving, and they are just staring into just space with like
Mhm.
nothing behind their eyes. And I don't know how to describe it, but it I laughed for probably a solid like 5 minutes.
It was when Andrew showed the piece of it, and I hadn't actually hit that point yet, and then they turned the key, and I was like, "Oh, this is totally it," and then it was just blank stares. Like, yep, there it is.
But yeah, I mean, like, it was still better animated than what I was expecting it to be.
Mhm.
Especially, I was very impressed with the fact that it was hand drawn,
Mhm.
and that is, or at least if there was any CGI assist, it was very minimal.
It was really
Yeah.
subtle. if
And
was
it
in
didn't
there.
have like the computer sheen on it, if
Yeah.
that makes any sense. So, Steven or Joel, I
Okay.
don't know.
We're gonna take a small step up this mountain. I gave it a 7.
Mhm.
Andrew's hit most of my points. I mean, at the end of the day, it is hand animated. It was on, I don't know what the deadline was per se, but certainly a strange budget where it was kind of designed to fuel toy sales, and it was also budgeted based on how well the sales were going,
Which is why it got canceled.
which is why it got canceled and had to be brought back later.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's a really ambitious project to take on and say we're going to do everything hand drawn at 2010 when computers are definitely there and definitely cheaper. So props for that. I would agree with Andrew that a lot of the combat that was probably the most moments when it felt like a kid show because everyone just kind of stood in their place and did their powers at each other.
Mhm.
And then there was never
There wasn't a
like-
lot of interaction.
Yeah, and you never got the kind of tight camera angle where like Robin is doing a flip. Every time Robin does a flip, I'm standing 20 feet away from him watching him do a flip. I'm not in the flip with him kind of
Mhm.
thing. You never got those kind of show off moments. So that's a little, disappointing. But at the end of the day, I mean, it was superheroes. It was believably superheroes. We get an absolute smorgasbord of DC characters who I know or do not know to varying degrees. And as near as I can report, they represent who they were.
Mhm.
And the abilities were recognizable for, oh, he's doing this, she's doing that, they're going here. There were never those moments of, where are you? Did you just turn left to go right?
Yeah, the
that
blocking,
did not happen.
The blocking in the actual storyboarding of the action scenes was good.
Yeah.
There was never a time where what was actually happening on screen didn't make sense. Everything was very clear, concise, and you knew what was happening. It's just when it was happening, there just wasn't a lot of visually interesting things that were there.
Yeah.
And I actually think the reason why it was hand animated was because every other piece of DC animation universe has been hand animated up to that point.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for them to deviate from that, especially on a secondary show, unless it's going to go for like full CGI where it's like 3D characters.
Yeah, because this is very much a spiritual successor to Batman the Animated Series.
Yep.
And you know, it obviously hits different beats. It's telling a different kind of story. It's focusing on different characters, and the animation style is a little updated. It's not quite as you don't see kind of the baggy pants lines, you know, of not the figures are a little more defined, but it's very much in the same sort of feeling.
Yeah. So what's interesting to me is, one of the things that I kind of knocked it for was that it didn't have a distinct style of its own. It didn't feel like it had kind of the same polish that a show like Batman the Animated Series had, where it religiously stuck to a style, versus this just kind of felt, you know, it's just real world. And again, because they're dealing with deadlines and budgets, you end up with kind of a more empty feeling world. You know, Batman the Animated Series, because they chose this style, hey, I don't want to fill in, you know, this whole sidewalk. Well, that's fine, because it's a black sidewalk with 3 pools of light from lampposts, and you're golden. And well, now we just sold the mood, we sold the style, it's distinct, and it didn't cost us a whole lot. And it felt like they didn't get a lot of opportunities to take those kinds of cheats or shortcuts, because there was no like set defined style. And even going back and looking at something like Batman Beyond, it also, because of the setting, it's a, you know, cyberpunk near future type thing, it had kind of its own style and vibe that I really think this show
it lacked a little bit,
because you have some of the techno aspects that you would see in Batman Beyond, but you would also just have generic high school number 3, or, you know, this building or this room, and it's just a room, and it just doesn't have the opportunity to really show off, I think.
Yeah.
So Joel?
Well, I'm going to disagree with everything you said.
Yep.
Because I expected. No, actually, I gave it an 8. So it's, I mean, we're all fairly there.
This was not together. A mountain. This was a pretty easy little elliptical climb.
I think that the biggest deal to me is that this is one of the last examples of this 2D art style in I'll say Western animated kids shows that you can find.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
And that is a style that is near and dear to my heart. It embodies my childhood. And so I give it a lot of props for them going with that style and executing it well.
Yeah. No, that's all valid.
Well, and to my point, like, it's really like I'm overly harsh with animated series. And especially when they come hand drawn, and I like, because I watch a lot of anime, I see what other people do with hand drawn stuff, and again, totally different styles, totally different mediums, kind of. And it's definitely one of those things where, like, I'd probably not, if we watched, you know, Batman the Animated Series, or if we watched the Superman, Justice League, that kind of stuff, I'd have probably the exact same complaints most of the time. I mean, now Batman the Animated Series had some true gems of hand drawn animation, but I digress.
Yeah.
Anyways, continue.
Yes. Right. So the action, I'll grant you, is a little bit okay. So set piece 1, do your thing. Set piece 2, do your thing. Yeah. You don't get a whole lot of, like, the wide shots where you see a lot of different stuff going on isn't terribly well connected or choreographed for you to get a really broad sense of, okay, there's a lot of stuff happening at the same time.
Well, and it's usually typically a very wide shot, and I'm fighting you, and she's fighting him, and they're fighting each other over there. And so, like, is there a lot going on in the frame? Sure. Could any of these individual fights have taken place anywhere else, and it would have been completely as relevant to each other as they are right now.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
But I will say, kind of to counterbalance that, they did a really excellent job in the visual design for the particular abilities that all of the main actors are using. And so every time that somebody does something, you know what they're doing.
Yeah, no, you definitely know the skill or
you,
the ability.
You quickly kind of get up to speed on, okay, these are the things that this person can do, and these are the things that this person can't do, because failure happens all the time in the show.
Yeah.
And so that really quickly, kind of in a visual way, gets you up to speed on where the power level is. And so anytime that they attempt something, you more or less understand the stakes just from a visual perspective, which I really like.
Yeah. Well, in a lot of the battles, and this is more of a DC problem in general, is a lot of the powers that they're using are ranged attacks.
Yeah.
And that's generally not very compelling unless there's a lot of effects that go along with it.
Right. The more range that you have in conflict, then the more that the scenery matters, right? The obstructions, the obstacles.
Where then a lot of the more compelling animation and stuff is whenever Connor Kent is kind of like grappling with someone.
Yeah,
you get
and
up close.
There's more choreography. There's a lot more blocking concerns of like where he's being thrown and how he's impacting things. And that's where they did get to kind of flex a little bit of it. It's just there wasn't enough of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
DC has a plague of archers.
God, there's so many archers.
There's only so much you could do for an archer when Superman is right there.
Yeah.
I can't make you look cool, dude. I'm sorry. Pull the bow back, let it go. I can't help it.
I mean, yeah, basically, like the most you get is an archer sliding on the ground and then shooting while they're sliding.
There was a lot of aerial,
We
like
get
jumping
some
through the
Legolas.
air.
There
Kind
was
of
a lot, yeah.
Okay, well, moving forward, sounds like we've covered what we want to cover there. Going into performance. All right, do we want to come down the mountain? Yeah, Joel,
yeah,
start us
probably.
off.
All right. So performance.
I'm betting here. I'm making bets.
So performance, I gave this a 10. I am
coming down the mountain.
There are a lot of really heavy themes, emotional themes that are handled in this show that the voice actors did an excellent job in portraying the emotions of the characters as they're going through these complex situations. And it's not just the voice acting, but also the animation supports this, where you have looks. You have that one scene where it's early on in the show, maybe 5-6 episodes in, and Miss Martian and Superboy are experiencing attraction for each other, but like are really awkward and don't know how to proceed with any of this. And so she was trying to pull him into helping her with making cookies in the kitchen.
Great scene.
And she's using her telekinesis and not watching what she's doing, and she's getting really jittery because she's really nervous. And it's just like you kind of cut away, and then you come back to somebody walking into the room, and he's just sitting on the couch, like covered in eggs and flour, looking at a blank TV screen,
white fuzz.
Yeah, while she's just like being, like totally shut down, working on whatever it is she is in the kitchen. And so that was a really great example of kind of the visual performance through animation of showing what the character's emotional state was.
Yeah. And I do think there were definitely several high points in the performance, and not all of it was the voice actors even talking like what you're talking about here. There's actually not a lot of dialogue. I mean, Miss Martian is speaking more and more rapidly.
She's word vomiting.
Yeah. But for the most part, Connor Kent's voice actor doesn't have to say anything, and we still get the full impact. Right. And I think that's a really good example of a high point for the show, because that is a scene that I also remember quite well.
I mean, that was
pointed to.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the main scenes that actually got me a laugh, because Connor is just like initially just staring at this TV just with like white static, not saying a word, straight faced while she's in the kitchen doing stuff. She's like, "Hey, do you want me to turn on the TV?" He's like, "No." And he's
Yeah.
just staring straight ahead.
Existential crisis.
And
Yeah.
and then like she's like, well, you can come help me cook. And he's like, okay. And then he gets like eggs on him and flour and stuff. And then he just goes and sits back down and just stares again at nothing.
Yeah.
And
Except you don't. I think and it's maybe not a performance thing. It's just a editing decision of, well, you see the disaster happen, and then I don't even know. Batman, some semi-authority figure enters the room, and it's just cut to them just back to their separate positions, and he is just blank wall staring at nothing. And whoever walked in,
maybe been Captain Marvel.
It's somebody. They walk in and they look and they're like, okay,
Yeah.
So Steven?
Are you?
Yeah.
You think you got that was the 10.
Okay, yeah, actually, no. I will come back to you, Joel.
Okay.
Oh my.
He's gonna throw darts at me, and I'm just gonna have to just grab him out of the air and throw him right back at his smug little face.
Shoot him out of your bow. Do something cool. Okay. I gave performance a 7 because I don't think that there were any, we were just talking about a highlight, right? A really high moment. I don't know that there were necessarily any true low light points. I just think that some of the big highlights, there weren't enough. I feel like there were whole episodes where, like, do I recognize these voices? Do I know who this person is? Is it distinct? And full credit for them in kind of committing to personalities in vocalisms. Robin is a highlight and also really annoying. It's one of those moments.
He's at least the youngest one, so he's kind of meant to be annoying.
But it's one of those things where, like, I super appreciate what they did, but by episode like 12, man, am I sick of it. And there's some point in there where I was like, oh man, they let him get away from it. He stopped doing it, and then it came back. I was like, oh.
Talking specifically about the removing
the
prefix from words like distraught and underwhelmed and
disaster.
Yeah.
Because that's a good vocal mannerism to highlight, and it lets you immediately recognize if he is talking to another character through a door, even if you don't necessarily know his voice, you're gonna know who he is because of that mannerism. Yeah. Same thing for like Wally, even though he is incredibly annoying.
Who's Wally?
Kid Flash.
Oh God.
Yeah, I knew I was going to get a good one here. He had a specific personality, but hitting on any female that breathes is not a good personality.
Right, but like that was a character flaw, which he then grew and changed out of by the end of the series.
That's plot. That's a whole different.
But that's character too.
No. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying in the realm of Robin was cute but annoying, Flash never got to be that second part.
That first part.
The first part.
Sorry. Yeah. No, he was very much the second part, which is kind of sad. I like speedsters, generally speaking. There were some truly hideous Louisiana accents about a third of the way into the show.
Oh, with the
prison
break.
Yeah, with the Tommy and Tuppence.
Not even them. Just the
everybody,
just the warden.
The whole episode.
Yeah,
the whole episode.
It was pretty rough.
I always love when they go for, we're gonna do, this person's from Alabama or Georgia or Louisiana. It's like, because the only way that they're going to have a way to differentiate this and establish it immediately is this is going to be a truly hideous accent. And yep, there it is. All right. Because I think at the start of the episode, they're like, oh yeah, they were terrorizing the South. And I was like, oh, I don't remember what state, because I've seen this before. I was like, I don't remember what state it was. Oh, Louisiana. There it is. Okay. Yep. That is an accent. Woo. So, I don't know. There's not like a ton of things for me to really and truly like dig in and say, oh, it was bad. There's just not enough for me to say it was great, because the meat of the story was really, really good. And they have moments where they really play off it and do well with it. I just think that for what we were being given, there were more opportunities that were lost.
Okay.
Andrew?
So I kind of clocked in at half of Joel's score at a 5.
That is like not even reasonable.
I don't know. It felt pretty reasonable to me. So, okay, I'm going to talk good stuff, which I've already kind of touched on. Connor Kent and Miss Martian were fantastic.
Well, they're definitely the best.
Yeah, the highlights of the show.
And okay, so a little breakdown. Connor Kent has the most episodes that he is in throughout the course of the show, which is 67 episodes. Then you have Miss Martian.
Oh,
which
we're
is
talking all seasons.
all seasons.
All seasons. Okay.
Like just
Okay.
like
Weird.
throughout
Well,
the-
I don't understand why we're
This is a
moving
weird
beyond
metric.
season 1.
Well, no. I'm just saying, like, basically, like clearly Connor Kent and Miss Martian are the two main
The
characters
centerpieces.
of the show, meaning that they should
Okay.
have been given the most amount of depth for their characters
And they were.
initially.
Okay.
So that's kind of so like Miss Martian clocked in at 63, and then Robin comes in at like 58, and then it just kind of goes down from there. So, like for that. They did Miss Martian and Connor Kent, Nolan North, and Danica McKellar did a fantastic job with what they were given, and honestly, that's probably about as good as I can give it. Now, kind of like going on with what Steven was saying, Robin was relatively grating, but he was more in like an endearing way, where he was a 13-year-old kid. And you can't really...
It's believably a 13-year-old
he played
kid.
a 13-year-old kid, and that's fine. I had a very big problem with basically every other character, the secondary characters. Like Artemis was really, really rough.
Okay.
Because like a lot of... Like whenever I try and look at performance, I try and look at it from the perspective of, are they talking at me or are they talking to me? Or talking to the character that they're interacting with, or are they talking at them? Where if I can talk to a wall, and you can listen to me, and you can think that I am talking to you, but I'm actually just talking to the wall. Whereas I can talk to you, and I can inflect towards you, and you actually get emotion from that, because I am not like trying to just express, if that makes any sense.
So you're kind of saying like there are lines spoken in a vacuum, and there are lines spoken with a reflection back, where there's going to be action, reaction, interaction.
Exactly, and a lot of the stuff that a lot of the lines that they give, like Artemis, Speedy, or I guess, or Kid Flash, or whatever, whoever you want to call him.
Well, that's two different people.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, Speedy's the red hair.
Speedy is another Archer, and there's a Kid Flash right there. Who in their right? Why did you choose this name? You live in a world of speedsters.
But the thing is, they made fun of themselves for it. It was
I know.
awesome.
Yeah. There was some good, and I guess maybe I'd throw it more into plot, some good self-referential moments to like, why am I doing this? I have superpower. I could just not be here, kind of things.
But yeah, so Wally or Kid Flash,
Yes.
he was probably the most grating example of the entire show, where every word that came out of his mouth just had absolutely nothing to it besides just the like what he was saying, and everything he said was stupid and bad. Like, and that's like, if you want to give him growth as a character, he had his little his heart saving episode where he kind of fouls up Lex Luthor at the same time. That's fine. That's a plot thing. You give him a little bit more growth. He's still the same dude, and he's still a 15-year-old kid that he's like kind of like Dennis the Menace is the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Where he consistently has...
But like, just because you don't like a character shouldn't be reflected in your performance score.
No, but that's the thing though, is like he still absolutely had no emotion to do any like his episode, his birthday episode, where he saved the kid with the heart thing, and he foils Lex Luthor. There's still nothing there.
Yeah, I definitely, like, it's easy to point to Wally and say, oh, he was really annoying. But also just in various bits, he just got to quip. And most of the time there wasn't like a lot of reaction to the quip. It was very much that he just kind of spouted off into air. And it's almost like, dude, like, how long have you been running by yourself that you just say these things and it's just normal life that no one responds back to you? Which it's so hard for me to say that's necessarily performance, because it's just a writing problem. But there's also nothing for them to, like, it's so much harder in animated form, because there's no, if the animators didn't improve on it for them, then it just kind of falls flat just by default.
No, we haven't actually touched on Aqualad or Calder yet.
Calderon,
Kari Pearton?
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's not how you say his name.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, I just butchered it.
His first name is Kari.
Yeah. But he did a pretty good job.
He got some good pieces. The bit like where he's unsure if he wants to lead. He goes back to Atlantis,
and like those kind of like dialogue pieces. Whenever he's talking to like Batman about about wanting to lead or go back to Atlantis, those were kind of one of the more high points of performance, where like you can actually get some emotion out of it, and you can understand where he's coming from of how the person he wants to be and the person that he currently is, and how he's trying to struggle with that.
Well, and also
Kari Payton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, at the same time, you have Batman kind of standing there laying down the law to the 15-year-old of choose the rest of your life. Which
well, Batman being the main the main mentor is kind of silly.
Yeah, he's as cuddly as a box of rocks, and as helpful as a wooden plank, because he is going to stand there and give you 3 sentences, and that's your mission briefing. Good luck.
And Batman's voice actor Greenwood, he did a good job too. I mean, but like that's kind of
he made my top 5 from the other week.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the thing. It's like it's kind of unfair to give, because like they have their own shows, and whenever you're kind of inserting other characters from other shows,
well, I mean, yes, if you are doing it for the purpose of fan service, then I agree. Well, but if they
he had a direct reason to be there,
part of the story, and contribute to character arcs and plot progression, then I feel like that's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
Like you can have, that is taking advantage of the work that you have done to have an interconnected universe without it being bad.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You're not nostalgia poaching.
Yeah.
I don't want to say baiting, because it wasn't really bait for
the
show, but it's just kind of relying on the fact that everyone knows this, and then it's there.
Like,
who brought Star Wars up first this time? Oh, not me. That's right.
Well, I mean, and we can get into a lot of that with plot, just because like they're very specific, like characters that get brought in that, like me being a very light knowledge DC person, where I've pretty much only seen whatever major movies have come out, and then Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah,
that's it. I don't know anyone else.
Andrew messaged one of our chats, and it's just like, well, there's this guy who's a magician, and Nick and I are both like, you're going to have to be way more specific in DC. That's like saying, well, there's an archer. You got to give me a color. You got to give me a gender. You got to give me something to go on here, because there are too many choices. So I'm gonna jump in.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm gonna throw something good out, because we've
I have a high note to end on.
Well, that's fine, but I am not giving a high note to end on. I'm extending an olive branch.
Okay.
Because it's one of the performances that I really like, just because I honestly don't know a whole lot about the character going into this, and it actually kind of made me be like, do I want to pursue more about it? Because I like the entertainment, the dichotomy and the entertainment of that. And it's Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Because, we talk about, well, you need the voice acting to line up with the animation, and he is the definition of it doesn't, because of who he is. And it's exactly who the character is. And it's actually really entertaining to watch him be this huge, buff, strong, problem solver of a member of the Justice. Like, hey, the asteroid is hurtling. Well, he can take care of it. Hey, the seas are raging. Well, he can take care of it. Well, anything's going wrong, he has the power set to handle it, and it's a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And then he gets to go supervise the teenagers, and it's just like the little brother who tagged along to go to the movie with your friends, and it's really annoying. Although he's not super annoying, he doesn't make it as a mentor, because he wants to kind of belong.
Yeah.
Despite just looking like an adult the whole time.
Yeah.
I did love Andrew's kind of journey of, I don't understand who this character. Oh, it's a kid.
Yeah. And so, you have this really fun dichotomy of, you as the viewer seeing both him trying to fit in with the team, and the team distrusting him because they don't understand
why
what he is. And so they're just like, they don't trust us. And this guy's getting all up in our business because he wants to run our stuff.
He always wants to know what's going on. They sent down a senior member to take charge, and it's just like 10-year-old following along like a puppy, like, oh yeah, we're going to go over here. That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Well, Okay, so this is just kind of to back up my point a little bit.
Yeah.
So you take a character like Captain Marvel or Mr. Marvel,
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel,
Mhm.
Captain Marvel, which is objectively a young, overzealous teenager or kid,
Yeah.
right?
I think he's 8 in the first season.
I went with 10. He is not a teenager.
Yeah.
That's as good as I'm going to get, really.
I did not put him down like for the actor on my list here, but if you take him and then you compare him directly to Wally or Kid Flash or whatever, and you just take the lines that they have to deliver, like there is a very big difference because and I understand it's two different types of deliveries.
Yeah, like they're completely different people that are going for different emotional beats.
They are, but that's the thing though, is that Wally just doesn't have any. Like he literally just has no
I disagree, and we'll get to this in my final point.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so for the final point, to really put forward why I think the performances in the show are so great, is I want to talk about my favorite episode, which is not the episode where they have the quintessential, we were all in a simulation but something went wrong thing, but it's the
great episode.
But it's the follow-up episode.
Also great.
Which episode. I think is the best episode in the entire season.
Yeah, that whole bit is
because
really well done.
They go character by character and very, very quickly. Like you see maybe 30 seconds worth of them sitting down with Black Canary, who is acting as their therapist, essentially, their counselor, in trying to process the trauma that they just went through, because they've been through a doomsday scenario where they saw all of their friends die. And, they were, the simulation went wrong to where they believed it was really happening at the time. And so they have internalized this trauma. And so she's trying to help them work through it. Right. And so each character goes through and gets to summarize exactly what their whole deal is very, very quickly. And so you have, just to talk about like your two lowest points, you have Wally, whose whole deal is the entire time he is trying to hit on her because he doesn't want to have this conversation. He does not want to be there. He is completely in denial. And when she confronts him about it, he says, I'm fine with that. Because he does not understand how to deal with his own emotions. So he is scared of them and he runs away from them like he runs through his entire life.
But that's still plot though. Like I'm talking about
no, but it comes through in the performance is what I'm saying. Then you have Artemis, who is removed from the whole situation because she was the first one to die in the simulation.
She doesn't see her friends die.
Right. So she feels like she doesn't have this trauma, but it also means she doesn't have this connection to the team, which is also her whole deal. She feels disconnected and mistrusted through the whole thing. And then you just go through each of the others. And of course, like through most of the episodes, Superboy and Miss Martian are standouts.
Yeah.
But even Robin like really sums up really, really well, where he comes to this understanding point of, I can do it. I can be the leader. I can be what Batman is. And I don't like that I can do it because it was awful. And I don't want to be that. And it's this huge growth moment.
Well, because he's the one that like he's probably actually the most seasoned doing superhero business, like out of the group.
Yeah,
even though he's the youngest, he's had the longest amount of time of working with Batman directly, of like fighting crime and seeing how Batman approaches problems and everything like that. And I mean, like he was one of the higher points on my list. It's just the list just wasn't that
high. But anyway, so I felt like that episode, I mean, aside from the whole Apocalypse connection, which is just like the whole, once you get into outer space in both DC and Marvel, it just gets really weird and I don't like it very much. But
the scale becomes keep the scale small.
But with the half of the episode that's dealing with the therapy sessions, I thought that it hit home really well on every single character, and you just don't get that if the performances aren't there.
Okay.
I don't
really have anything to come back for, because like like those 2 episodes were probably the best episodes of the season, excluding maybe the episode where they all lose their memories and then Miss Martian is basically trying to save them. But like those 2 episodes were the standout episodes of the entire show. Like, and so what I'm saying is that like, okay, like that was great, but there's nothing else beyond that for a couple of the other.
We will have to agree to disagree and move on.
Oh yeah, I'm not gonna
to the score.
Yeah. Steven gets to go start first.
Well, I had a really good moment there that I was laughing about from something that y'all said that I was going to throw out. Now I don't know what it was, but that's okay because you know. And I do agree that those are probably the 2 best episodes, and that it's a very high point. It's just, and it's not necessarily that there isn't support under it to keep the score up. It's just there isn't enough. I just would have liked it to have hit more often, and it's a lot harder in an animated series because you're not purely reliant on the actor. The voice actor is absolutely reliant on the animation budget, and vice versa. And the directing, because you don't get to see anything. There's no set.
Well,
so there is some concern. It's a little harder just to straight up say, oh, well, you know, this dude's voice just isn't very good. He didn't do a good job.
Well, so I mean, like
there, you know?
It's definitely one of those things where so you have character-centric episodes that like, so the Miss Martian episode, the first one that she gets where she is fighting the Psy guy, Simon. In the desert.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember my thing.
Which is a standout episode for her because you finally get a little bit more information on her backstory, but then you also it's basically her the whole episode, and you get a fantastic performance from her. And then you look at Wally's episode, which is centric only to him, and there's just no emotion for it because all you do is you just get this arrogance of him just talking to himself the whole time. Yeah. Where like Miss Martian
is who he is,
but
right?
Miss Martian does the same thing, and you actually like.
But if you're trying to personify different characters, just because you don't have a connection with a character because you don't like that character, doesn't mean that they weren't portrayed correctly. I mean, do you like that?
I remember my joke.
Okay, so make your joke. We're not going to make any progress.
There's not going to be a consensus here. There will be no meeting in the middle. So I like y'all are both just like
you are the middle.
Oh, don't meet over here. I like how y'all are both just like, yeah, you know, when the scale gets really large, it gets bad. It's not good. And DC and Marvel are both their ears perked up like, small scale, you say? You want another Archer? No, not that small scale. All right. Anyways, we're gonna move forward into the score. So we're talking some music here, and I get to go first here apparently. So we're going to start off with the Whelm. It's a little better than that. It's a 7. So I like the intro. I think the intro is actually pretty good. Yeah. It's really short, which is a little sad because it's one of the pieces that will stick with you. That's so hard to judge. Maybe it's a blessing that it's really short because if it was really long, it would always be in my head forever. But it's a really iconic, distinctive sound that I think fits sort of it's not edge, it's not sheen, it's not sharpness, but kind of just the feel of the show. Like I think it fit in very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I won't lie, I don't remember the outro. I don't recall.
It's mostly the same piece. It's just
the same
longer.
thing. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
For the rest of the show, I think because I went and listened to the score on its own, also with the show. I think it mostly suffers the problem of there are some good bits,
generic action,
and it's superhero generic.
Yeah,
they're very short. I like a lot of the stuff around Red Tornado. I think he got some really good music.
Yeah,
which is amazing because it's another one of those characters that DC throws at me. I'm like, I don't know who you are.
Is Red Tornado just like a normal guy that just like, I mean, like, is he an actual comic book hero?
I don't know.
Isn't in
he's a long running member of the Justice League.
Oh, is he?
He's okay. Aqualad was made for Young Justice, and I think he's the only one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I was actually going to ask if Artemis was also made for Young Justice.
No, because
don't look at me, Joel.
No, she. I'm
pretty sure she existed.
The other characters that she is connected to in the show are definitely pre-existing.
Sportsmaster is a real character who has existed in DC for a while.
But even her mother is a Batman villain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like because like, over the course of the show,
Well, 'cause they
Bruce
hint at it
Bruce is like, she's been rehabilitated. She's gone to prison. She's come out and she's crippled, and Bruce is taking care of her.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
But she was the character Huntress,
Mhm.
who was a Batman villain, kind of on the same level as Catwoman, never quite the love interest, but had the same kind of, well,
Skill set.
she's sort of doing good, but like she's
Yeah,
doing it in a
she
way
straddles
that's-
the fence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
She has her own interests, and they just happen to run through the middle.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to the music, not the plot, because we're not there yet. I think beyond that, a lot of it maybe suffered some in that it just didn't get the time to kind of play out, and a lot of it was really subtle. It got kind of pushed to the background
Mhm.
too many times, because there are some good moments that could have music, and they just either didn't or is very soft. Listening to the score, there's some good bits. There's some very boilerplate superhero. I mean, Superman's in the show. Like these kinds of themes just exist, and
He didn't
we've
really do
known
much
them.
though.
He doesn't, which is nice, because
I'm so glad.
as soon as Superman does anything, the story has been ruined, because by default, the story doesn't exist because there is no more conflict. Because Superman just got off the bus and was like, sup.
Well, I mean, Superman got to engage in conflict in the best way that he possibly can, and that was by being an absentee
villain.
father figure.
Oh, I was going to say by being an obstacle to be overcome.
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and take it and
Go for
say
it,
that
yeah.
I also gave it a 7.
Yeah.
And you took every single one of my points. So like, I agree with you completely at this point. I think that as far as the theme goes, it was very short. But it fits the bill of being snappy, recognizable. You understand where you are. And if you're enjoying yourself, it's got enough energy that it can make you excited. Like, all right,
It's
here we go
got
for
a little
another episode.
Pavlov's dog to
Yeah.
it, where if I walked down the hall and heard that,
Yeah.
like, okay, I know what's on TV
Yeah.
just by default.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So over to you.
Okay, so I'm going to read my description first and then give the score.
Okay.
Oh
second.
boy. Okay, let's go.
Okay, so right down the middle with a solid opening and a poor ending theme that does nothing to enhance the show. However, the background music is acceptable and doesn't take away from the show itself.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down the center. And
Um,
I can't really argue with that score per se, because I could have like almost how good a day was I having? I could have given this a 6 pretty easily.
So
Because it go ahead. I'm not gonna
I
say-
can't argue with your statement.
Yeah.
Right. I argue that that's not what constitutes a 5.
Yeah.
But that's just because we have differing scales.
we have differing scales, opportunity cost
Yeah.
versus whatever your scale is. But no, okay. So I weight opening and ending themes very heavily.
Mhm.
Mostly just because I have been trained for years watching anime
Mhm.
Mhm.
that an opening theme is to allow you to get into the universe for the second, like however long the opening sequence is.
Mhm.
That is your time to get into the mode of like, oh, I'm watching One Piece now, or oh, I'm watching Batman the Animated Series now.
Okay.
And that is basically the elevator pitch for the show.
They took that very seriously
Which
and
is-
made the intro 30 seconds.
Which is interesting.
Actually, it's not even that.
Okay, so
I habitually skip intros all over the place because I don't want to be pulled in by the intro stuff. I want to be pulled in by the story itself.
well, okay, so look at it from the perspective of I am a kid, and teenager going through, just kind of flipping through channels,
Mhm.
and I happen to have this, and they're like, "Oh, Young Justice is coming on next," and then goes right into the opening theme.
Mhm.
If I have no idea of what the show is, and I have no recollection of what I want to watch,
Mhm.
and then I see this, and I see, if it is a good opening sequence, it should be able to pull me in to at least watch a little bit of the show, right?
Which I think that this one accomplishes
Like
that.
I said, it was a solid opening that
Yeah.
did its job. Like Steven said, it is recognizable. Where
Mhm.
like if I was walking down the hall of somewhere and I heard it on the TV, I know it would be Young Justice.
Yeah.
An ending theme is meant to basically wrap up the episode, which is generally what it's supposed to do, and while giving credits for the people that
Mhm.
actually worked on the show, which is important. it is also meant to add to the feeling of the show. I don't know. Endings are a little bit more nebulous just because each show that I've watched normally it treats them differently. Some of them add actually more content to the show. Like, so if you watch like Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, there is more content if you watch the actual ending of the episode that like it adds to each episode kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you watch like Young Justice, it's literally just a black screen with credits, and there's no it's just a generic superhero
theme.
Is
that a score? I mean, well, like Joel just said, it's kind of a repeat of the intro, right? Which
a little bit
is obviously kind of potentially a lost.
It's like a reprise
opportunity because it didn't make an impression on me, right? Like there is a chance to sell something more, or even to kind of come down, because I kind of get what you're saying about how outros have a different, like intro, the purpose is sell the show.
It has to be the quintessential elevator speech of like, this is what the show's about, this is what you can possibly expect to see, and here it is.
And the outro should really probably, depending on the contents of the show, be a decompression from that. A lot of anime, the outro is lighter or more wholesome, especially oddly enough, when the material inside is not, I feel like there'll be really heavy themes, and then we get the little just the single girl dancing to a peppy song for the outro, and it's just kind of like, okay, I get it. Y'all are trying to like set me back on my feet to send me out on my day now that the episode is done. So for that one, I would just kind of say, yeah, it's just a missed opportunity if you're just kind of reprising it. But it's not like, obviously, I mean, I gave it a 7. I didn't hate what they were doing. Again, the intro did its job. My biggest complaint would just be, hey, there were some decent musical pieces in here, but they were kind of soft and subtle, and they were just overshadowed. Like it wasn't properly presented to you in the show.
I did think Aqualad's some of his themes or like kind of like motifs, I guess, that he got, especially whenever he was in Atlantis fighting Black Manta. Like that was a pretty solid episode for music, but everything else didn't really jive. But I mean, really, I just knocked it most for the ending because it's just a missed opportunity.
That's really interesting because I literally could not care less because the show's over, right? And like I'm done. I'm gone. I'm moving on to the next episode.
It's still part of the runtime.
Well, it's part of the runtime because it has to be, not because it's got anything to add.
No, that is totally wrong.
I'm way more on Andrew's side here than nothing else, because it is the intro hooked you, the show was decent, and now the exit, like there's a reason why a lot of shows put next time on Dragon Ball Z. They want to hook you for the next show. The outro is an opportunity to continue to sell you to tune in next week.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's just nothing, you are losing an opportunity just by default.
Yeah. Like so it's not that like this one particularly. I mean, because like you said, it's more of just a reprised section of the opening, which is fine because the opening song is good. However, there's no animation to it. That's not a score. That's not a score component. No, but I mean, it is opening. I mean, like I wouldn't put an opening sequence. Well, I don't know.
Like I'm totally on board that it's a lost opportunity to sell me on some more music, and it isn't ultimately an animated show. You should have something behind it, but the actual lack of animation, it doesn't fit in the score.
I will retract that. But I mean,
strike that from the record.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's really just I just consider it a missed opportunity, and like so if you want to take like. I'm pretty sure we're all in line for everything else that we kind of talked about for the score.
Yeah.
So like I knocked it 2 points for not having a good ending. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, and at the end of the day, the intro and the outro, if you actually watch the whole show, is what you're going to hear the most of. Like an individual villain's theme, you make it twice for 26 episodes. So
yeah,
it needs to be good.
Yeah, because that's the other thing too. And like, so you have 26 episodes, right? That is 52 instances of an opening and ending.
Which I'll watch maybe 13 of.
That's completely irrelevant of what you do.
But if it was a really good intro and a really good outro, that number might go up.
No, not really. Like 13 is generous, right? Well, because like I watch the intro one time for sure because I want to see what's there.
Right.
And then after that, I will skip through it, and then I will watch the outro only so long as it takes for the watch next episode button to come up. And that is how I treat every single show on streaming services.
That's incredible.
But see, that's the thing though, is like, if you were watching this on broadcast TV,
then I would have just turned off the TV. Like, I don't just sit through.
No. You're missing the point here. Is the point is that you, as a kid watching this show, now have to have a hook to stay tuned for the next episode if it's like a back-to-back time slot. So let's say 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. This is the hour of Justice League.
Yeah.
Justice Hour.
And let's say that was your first episode you ever watched, and the episode wasn't one of the better ones, and now you are sitting in the last 30 seconds of this episode, and it's just a big black screen with nothing else on there, and it's just a really boring song. Would you tune back in? If it
the ending being like the credits having an exciting theme does not bear into that decision at all, like 0%.
Man.
Okay, we're dealing with two different personalities here. We're not going to come to, again, just like with we're going to move forward. The split is less dramatic, but we need to move forward.
Okay, the philosophical differences
I'm gonna
staggering,
go first
unreconcilable.
I'm going first this time.
All right.
Plot. This is the plot score.
Yep. Okay. So the plot, I give it 7.
Okay.
Right.
I felt that basically all of my real misgivings with the plot really just come with the general theme of the show, because it is based in the DC universe.
Sure, yeah.
And I think comic books, they're just not for me. And I'm not going to go into why I think superpowers are silly, because I watch a lot of anime. But
yeah, that's a little bit of kettle and
little hypocritical.
Yeah. So it's really more on just I'm just not a big superhero guy.
Sure.
So a lot of the individual episode plot lines just didn't really kind of do it for me. So I'm just gonna talk about some of the stuff I did like.
Okay.
One thing that I found absolutely fascinating and very happy that a kid show did this was they had a partial episode whenever they're on the island where Bane is kind of like the good guy, bad guy.
Yeah.
And the first section of the whole episode is all in subtitles because they're all
like
speaking Spanish.
Yeah.
And for a kid show to do that, it is fantastic. I'm so happy that they are introducing younger kids to, hey, sometimes you just have to read subtitles
hey, sometimes if you go somewhere, you're just not going to know what's being said.
Yeah.
Unless you learn the language.
Exactly. Yeah. And I thought that was fantastic. And I was very excited for that. And unfortunately, they only did that one episode. Maybe
there was some stuff in Malaysia.
Like, or fake South Korea.
Yeah.
Just Korea. It's just fake. Yeah.
But
Kurak was the one I was trying to say.
Yeah,
because there was some of that in the fake Middle East.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, I thought that was really cool, and it's very rare that you see kid shows do that, and that kind of shows, I'll say, more of the progressiveness that they had going into Young Justice, despite being basically greenlit for toy sales.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really liked, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, Connor Kent and Miss Martian's main storylines were fantastic, very compelling, and go figure, they're the main characters of the show. They need to be interesting. They need to grab you on in every episode of like, oh, I really hope that, because they're not going to get hurt, or they're not going to they can't die, like
they can be emotionally harmed.
Yeah, it is not that kind of show. So now, because it's not that kind of show, you have to have emotional stakes in it, and I thought they did a very good job with kind of giving you those emotional stakes. So, I mean, like, overall, I also like that it was a serialized thing and not episodic. Meaning that every single plot point, while may not be directly related, there are still parts of each episode that were connected to each other.
Yeah, and I think on that, like, they did a really good job progressing something important with every episode. I think the weakest one from that perspective was the Harm episode, where it was kind of the duo Artemis and Zatanna episode, where they just kind of run into this random bad
weird
guy, and that was still an important
villains everywhere.
That was still an important episode for Artemis's progression, because like she is deciding whether or not to trust the team with her secret over the course of that episode. And for as short a period of time as Zatanna was in the show, I really enjoyed her arc as well. Cause like, I mean, she's thoroughly a tertiary character,
Yeah.
but losing her father, even though he's still alive, he's kind of the prisoner of Dr. Fate at this point as a substitution for a decision for her because of a decision that she made.
But like then it's kind of, it's I always feel it's like those kind of decisions that they have to make where like she had to, for them to survive the plight that they were in, she had to do that.
Yeah.
And now like I mean, obviously, if there was another way that they could have done it to like not have her wear the fate head or whatever.
And with things like this where you have superpowers and you have, if you have enough time, you can think of anything to do, but you have, when you apply time pressures to things like this, that's where the stakes really get to go up in a believable manner.
Right. And for specifically that type of character, anytime that a magician is inserted into Marvel or DC, generally speaking, they are a catch-all character of, we made a really weird plot point and we need a solution. Who can pull solutions out? Oh yeah, magician. That's literally what they do. So you have a solution for this because you can do anything as far as we know because your scale and magic system is never going to be explained.
Yeah.
So it's good that they can actually do something more with the character. It's the same Superman problem of, well, if you're that strong and can solve all problems, then how do we attack you? And it has to be emotional or psychological in nature, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I'm going to take it next.
Sure.
I give it an 8. And you know what? I'm going to say it. This is a kid's show. There are a lot of professional show writers currently making money who could take some notes about how, and I'm not going to claim to you that they sat down with the story ready to go from day one, but there are a lot of professionals out there who could take some notes about how to either have a cohesive outline or how to make the pieces fit together cohesively throughout. Because this is 26 episodes. There's basically no filler.
Yeah.
I mean, even stuff like, McGann is going to go try out for the cheerleading team, which sorry, Andrew, in any anime, that is filler.
Oh, no.
100%.
I'm not disagreeing.
And for that episode, that's actually pretty great for her character development, Connor's character development, their interactions, and the major theme of, well, how do you find yourself? How do you belong, etc.?
And it really lays the groundwork for you to understand how thoroughly she is adopting this other persona because she doesn't want to be who she is. Once you run into the evidence of this show that in universe she had been watching and has based her entire persona around.
And again, this is a writing thing, etc. But big props, they made her alien, like not in form per se, but just who she is, how she acts, how she reacts. Like from the instant she's introduced and she talks to them all telepathically, and then she has to be told, "Hey, back down." Like this is, where
we don't do that on Earth.
Well, where you're from, this is natural because everyone does this. Here, it's going to be the difference, and it's going to feel very personal and invasive for everyone else, and where those boundaries are. So just those kinds of pieces also for Superboy, Connor Kent, of his kind of thing where they do a good job of making them feel, again, they were the two most compelling stories, but making them feel the outsider and actually being different. Not just, ooh, I'm just so different and an outsider. Then they're just another person.
Yeah.
They were legitimately who they were, and their conflicts felt real because of it. But seriously, any writer out there, just take some notes on how to structure this and make everything feel relevant. I mean, the events of episode 1 are relevant throughout.
Yeah.
We talk about the 2-part ish where you have the simulation death and this thing, and we go through kind of the ramifications of that. And these things, they all build up over time. Joel, you said it, how each time that they resolve some internal conflict, if it hadn't been resolved in that manner, that could have had impacts later. And it's true throughout, and it just keeps building up over time. And that, again, it's a kid's show. It could have just been, and remember kids, always drink your Ovaltine or whatever. And then the next episode, we're all just idiots playing video games or, whatever in the, it's not the Batcave, but in the Justice Cave. Yeah. Yeah. We're not here to talk about how half the battle is knowledge and the other half is 25% red lasers and 25% blue lasers or whatever. Like it was actually a structured show. And again, as an adult which I watched it on my own, I've watched, I think, 2 of the 4 seasons. I don't think if I got into the 3rd one or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously rewatched it for this. It's a real pleasure to be able to sit down and not just like be force fed nonsense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'll let you go in just a second. I just wanted to note, for basically all of Connor Kent's kind of storyline and stuff, I thought it was very good until they got to basically the performance enhancing drugs,
the patches,
or whatever. And I wish that they would have gone maybe a little bit further with it and actually shown a lot more negative consequence to him using it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think that what they were trying to hit on was drugs. They were trying what they hit on looked like drugs, but what they were trying to go for was the absentee father figure issue more, right? Because he's trying to be Superman.
Yeah.
He's trying to fill those shoes.
And so like, even though, yeah, it looks like he's taking drugs, but it's not, that wasn't the point of the story that they were trying to tell. And so I can see you wanting to go in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it was wrong of them, narratively speaking, not to.
Oh yeah, I'm not really
still
knocking
a kid's
it.
show. We don't need to collapse into like Rent here.
No. I'm not really knocking it for that. It's really more just I wish that if they were trying to go for that angle, which they may or may not have.
100% they were.
Then
because his whole story is actually the whole story of just about everybody. All of the major characters is about identity.
Who they're trying to emulate.
And I'm really more just saying that I wish that like they should have had more negative consequences for him utilizing those patches beyond just him getting angry.
It went back to the trust thing though, right? Because it was a thing that he was hiding.
Yeah.
And so the negative consequences were not so much immediate and physical as they were, well, now the bad guys have a lever on him.
Mm-hmm.
And if they didn't have the sharing session where they were honest with each other and accepting with each other, then that lever is really bad consequences, because now they have all of these pieces that the bad guys control on the team.
Yeah. Okay. Anyways, you can go.
Yeah. Anyway, so I basically agree with everything you guys said, but I gave it a 9.
Wow, surprise. 7, 8, 9.
So I think I want to hit back on the sequential nature of the storytelling, which is what you want to see in a serialized show. It did not have any filler episodes, and it really hit on really grown-up themes for being a kid's show.
Presented in a manner that kids are going to accept and compartmentalize.
And in particular, process. I think the most ultimately impactful are the ones surrounding identity and trust and acceptance. But the hardest to get through, and I think the most impressive that they did, were the ones kind of in the first half of the season, which surrounded leadership and what does it mean to be in a team.
Yeah, which I really did like the episode where basically Robin tried to be a leader and then failed miserably.
Right, yeah, on Bane's Island.
Yeah.
Because they go in and they don't have a good plan. They don't have coordination. They just, everything is going wrong. And incrementally over the course of several missions, as they refine and they understand, okay, well, we have to have a leader and it has to be Calder because he's the only one that can do it. He's the only one that he's the only one that has the cross section of being able to do it and people will listen to him. Yeah. And then they're like, okay, well, now there's an issue with we have got intel that there's a mole on the team, but Calder decides to keep that a secret from the team because of a multitude of good reasons. But they find out anyway. And so there's the issue of trusting his leadership. Well, what that's really raising and what is really pointed out by his conversation with Captain Marvel is what does it mean to be a leader? Well, now you are the leader. You've, as a team, you've gone over that hurdle, but what does that mean? How do you carry out those duties, not in a self-aggrandizing manner? Oh, look at me, I'm the leader, but really taking care of the team's safety.
Accepting the responsibility.
Yeah. And so being able to go through that as kind of the precursor to all of the really big character stuff, because you have already laid down the groundwork of this is how we operate, to where that gives space for trust and acceptance to grow. I just thought it was so very impressive for them to be able to bring across in such a cohesive manner.
Yeah.
Well, and I like to, there's a point that's made in another superhero thing that I've read. It's of varying qualities, but I thought it was funny because it's kind of not self-referential, but kind of pointing out the meta, quote unquote. It's kind of one of those things like, oh, if superheroes lived in this current day and how it would affect like organized crime and drug lords, et cetera, because they'd want to employ superheroes too. One of the points they make about having a good superhero team is that your leader has to be someone who is decisive, can make the shots, blah, 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 and is also someone who won't just go down in the first couple of hits, because if you have all your trust and built up in this person who just gets blown up in the first conflict, it's not helpful.
Oh, he
fits that realm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but also too, going back to the simulation episode where he sacrifices himself so the rest of the team can get away, and Robin like posthumously calls him out on it. It's like, yeah, he did that. Now we don't have a leader. That was stupid.
Yeah, because now he's like, now this is my problem.
Yeah,
I'm the next in line,
and he's not as good.
No,
and so
because he just doesn't have the experience.
Oh, sure, yeah, like and like I mean, this is out of scope, but he is filling those shoes in the second season, and so you get to see him because it's several years later.
Is that when he turns into Nightwing?
Yeah, he's Nightwing at that point.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of really cool. So over the course of the whole show as a series, there's a lot of fun growth as each season focuses on kind of the new generation as they go, with some of the old cast retained with new stories and stuff like that.
Yeah. So anyways, now that we have finalized our technical discussion, let's talk about these entertainment scores and how they land. Joel has got hands on hips.
There's no like. Okay, so to frame this, there's been a lot of disagreement and a lot of lively debate about what points are valid and what constitutes what scores and whatnot. Entertainment score is 100% subjective. Like there is no argument to be made about, well, you're wrong, because that's just wrong. Like you can't do that.
I mean, some of us don't like the theme and some of us do.
Yeah, for sure.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Well, on that note of it being very subjective, I actually really like Andrew's standard of, hey, if I felt like I'm going to rewatch this and enjoy it deliberately, it needs to be at least a 7.
I think he said
really
8.
an 8.
Oh, an 8? Yeah. Well, okay. Well, maybe my standards are a little lower, because I gave it a 7, and I feel like it fell into the category of, did I hate the fact that I had to come back and rewatch it? No, I watched it on my own, of my own choice, and then when we hit upon, oh, well, we'll do this as something, DC, it was like, okay, cool. Like I'm not upset by this choice. I'm going to sit down and, watch some shows and from a new perspective with maybe a little more clinical thought going into it. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's entertaining. There's no random junk filler. Most things have impact, which is what that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's how you want to entertain me. Don't just put a bunch of flashy lights up there. Like, show me that you're going to connect things. And they do. And that fulfills what I want. So 7, it's not, is it a world beater? Do I want to go home and fire it? No. It still is a kid's show on some levels.
Yeah.
So, who's next?
I'll go ahead and take it. It's not surprising. I gave it a 9. This is a show that I'm
actually a little surprised.
That I didn't give it a 10.
I'm a little prized. Yeah.
It is. There are points where it could have,
you don't have to justify.
Anyway, there are points where it could be improved. Right. Yeah. Like it could be tighter than it is. It could have been done in, I think, 18 episodes and still retained everything. So like there were no filler episodes. There was filler content.
There were definitely there was definitely so much of a rotating cast.
Basically anything that had to deal with magicians.
Well, for me, it's not the magicians, but it's the because like none of the stakes are tied to what they can do, except for Zatanna, because like she's still new. She's new, right?
Yeah.
There's none of the stakes are tied to what they can do. It's the relationships, but
you can do that without a magician.
But like all of the stuff that had to do with the outer space stuff, like is just an immediate turnoff.
Yeah.
In both DC and Marvel for me. And so there was a significant portion of a couple episodes that were dedicated to that, and so that brings it down.
That's fair.
In my mind. But this is a show that I have rewatched 3 times. And like for a 26 episode show, that's saying something.
That's a decent amount of that's 9.5 hours worth of content minimum.
Yeah, you hurdled both my bar and Andrew's bar for rewatch ability. So let's see what Andrew has to say.
I gave it 4.
Okay.
Oh.
And again, I kind of touched on this in plot. I am not a comic book guy.
Yeah.
I never grew up as a comic book guy. There are shows that I have watched, like Batman the Animated Series, that I've genuinely loved, and I hope that at some point maybe we will review it. But I mean, it's a good show. There are definitely flaws to it. But I never really watched like any of the Justice League or anything like that. And basically like any other superhero thing that I've watched is just mainstream films that exist.
Yeah, which by and large are not good. So
yeah,
at least DC wise.
DC ones, yeah.
So, like I've seen every single superhero movie that's come out besides I guess like Shazam, I think is the latest one.
That one was like, okay, so if you've got like the 2 good DC films and then all of the bad DC films, this one is in the middle.
Yeah. And so like a lot of my misgivings with the show is I would never watch it again just because it's DC.
Yeah.
And I think magicians are silly. I mean, like when the first episode happens and at the end of the second episode where like all the Justice League come down.
Yeah, because like the opening gambit's kind of a 2-parter.
Yeah. And they all come down and there's a dude in a top hat and a tux just floating by himself. I was like, okay, this is just ridiculous. Because like I know who all the main players are, but at some point, like they're like we're in like B, C tier list heroes, and there were 3 archers in the show. There needs to be 1.
Yeah, the archer thing kills me because it's just like, what is it about the bow that change it up? Give me a swordsman.
Yeah, do
something else.
Yeah.
Give me something different.
I will end on something good. If I was ever, just kind of walking through, like just kind of going through channel surfing and whatnot, and Young Justice happened to be on, and it was the episode where basically they all die, or the episode after that,
Andrew's favorite episode, they all died,
or the episode where Miss Martian is fighting Cyman or
Simon.
Simon.
It's literally Simon Says. It's incredibly obnoxious. Anyways,
but I would sit down and watch those episodes because those were good episodes, and those were entertaining enough for me to rewatch those. But the series as a whole, you would have to pay me money.
Okay.
All right. Well, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Patreon.com/Spoilers Podcast.
We'll have a special tier for just make Andrew watch the show again.
How much?
Hey, if you
$15 an episode.
If you
what does it cost,
want to
Andrew?
pay us
What's
money
your price?
for Patreon.com dollars and just force me to watch Young Justice over and over again, I will do it.
Andrew will do a lot. Out of spite and for money.
And for money.
And especially for money out of spite.
Yeah, so if you want to give us those Patreon dollars and specifically say this is for Andrew to rewatch.
Is there a field on the website where people can do anything like that?
Oh, yeah, no, if you just want give money, like you can just be like, I just want to give you $5 this month or whatever. You could put a little message with it. So no, seriously, dude, please.
Yeah, well, or if you want to, so this is the other thing too, is I'll send out, and this is completely a shameless shill here. So I have absolutely no intention to watch any of the other Young Justice seasons. If you wanna try and make it right to make me change my mind about how I like this show, you can pay us money on patreon.com/spoilers-intended-podcast.
We need to make a tier that it's not rewatch season 1, it's season 2. Push him into the new episodes. Yeah.
Oh, and it's like we have goals because it's like $15 an episode or something. He's like, oh, we're 50% there, but we won't pull the trigger until we're all fully funded.
Anyways, on that note, that sounds like
Kickstarter.
All well, before I was so rudely interrupted by my own laughter, that sounds like all the time we have for this episode. Until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Joel.
And every spoiler was intended. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, you can support the show for as low as $1 at patreon.com/spoilersintendedpodcast. We also have a Discord server and would love to have more people joining in the conversation. Links are in the description below. Thank you.